Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are all doing really well. So super laid back video this evening. It's a long weekend and I've been spending the entire weekend on BookTube stuff and Patreon stuff and doing stuff with the book club. There was 2 live shows. So I'm laid back in a hoodie, no makeup or anything. But I did want to wrap up some recent reads. I have been mentioning on the channel that I've been in a huge reading slump lately. And it's been super annoying. Like, this has gone back to kind of December time frame, and I'm not sure what it is. I don't know if I'm just unfulfilled in my reading or it's because of all of the overtime that I've been working. I'm not really too sure what's going on. So this is a recent read, so it's not a monthly wrap up. I'm trying not to get too constrained by like monthly dates and stuff like that. So this is going all the way back to November and up to the beginning of February. I am going to cut it off there because I do want to do a full reading wrap up for the Gothic Hearts Reading Challenge. February is actually going pretty well. I'm really pleased with the reads that I've been going through so far. Some of them are really good and some of them I'm just really enjoying because they're super comical. So more to come on that, but for right now we're going to wrap up everything since November. So one book that I really did enjoy reading, and I discussed this one a little bit in my favorite reads of 2023 video, was The Storyteller by Dave Grohl, and I absolutely love this book. It was a full 5 stars. I have no idea why it took me so long to pick this up. Dave Grohl is somebody that I love, and Nirvana was, and still to this day is, my favorite band of all time. So I finally picked this one up, and it's one of those books that I almost felt like I was part of what he was talking about. I can't say part of the story because it's real life, but part of what he was talking about. And he's such a good storyteller. I mean, they really named this book really well because he is a fantastic writer and speaker. And I mean, you know, if you've ever heard him in interviews and stuff, he's a super down-to-earth person, or seems like a super down-to-earth person. And that really came through in this book. So if you're into biographies, nonfiction, especially like rock and roll kind of biographies, I would definitely highly recommend this one. It was so good. I think this has to be probably one of my favorite books of all time, just because, you know, his personality really came out through it, and it was deeper than just talking about like what happened in Nirvana or all of that kind of thing. Like he talked about way back in the 70s growing up and like how much he loves his mom and road trips and things that happened you know, way back in his punk days, which was kind of where he started out. And then of course, you know, got into the Nirvana stuff, and of course when he talked about Kurt's death, I was crying. And it was one of those books where you laugh, you cry, you're super interested in it. So if you're a rock and roll fan and, you know, you're into Foo Fighters, Nirvana, or just really like a good nonfiction biography, this one is one I would highly recommend. And then as part of Amy McCaw's YA book club, I did read Big Bad Me by Ashlyn O'Loughlin, and I was supposed to be on the live show for that, but I ended up, I think I was sick that day, I can't remember, and I couldn't participate in the live show, and I haven't spoken about it on the channel yet. So Ashlyn is a fantastic writer. She's a fantastic YA writer, and this is about a young girl who finds out that she's a werewolf. And this is a fantastic story about family and found family, and it's a great adventure. I really enjoyed it. You know, it has all of the good YA tropes in there that we all love, but one thing that I found that was lacking was this took place in Canada, and I would kind of like there to have been a little bit more Canadiana included in there. That was kind of my only complaint, but this was the middle of the road read for me. I gave it 3 stars. It was great. I would definitely recommend if you're into YA, especially things that have to do with werewolves, vampires, found family, adventure, all of that kind of thing. I would definitely highly recommend this one, and of course we always like to support small authors around here. And I also read 2 Hester Fox books. So I read The Widow of Pale Harbor as part of my Haunted Victorian book club. This was our first pick that we picked in December. And I also read The Orphan of Cemetery Hill by the same author. So getting to The Widow of Pale Harbor first, this was my least liked Hester Fox book. So if you want to hear the discussion, the live is still on my channel. So for every month that we do a book club read, I do a live show and we just kind of discuss it with a couple of friends, and then people can come in the comments. And so it was kind of funny because I really wanted to pick a Hester Fox book for our first book club read because she is very quickly becoming one of my favorite authors, and I thought for sure that this one would be great. But you know, it was kind of like a 2.5 to 3 star read for me. It was way lower than what I would typically rate any of her other books. It kind of fell flat for me. This is about basically like a pastor kind of thing that goes into this town called Pale Harbor, and there's a widow living there who the townsfolk all believe that she killed her husband and that she's a witch and she's a recluse and all of this kind of stuff. And there's some really interesting kind of crime and murders going on in the town that are very reminiscent of Edgar Allan Poe's stories. So just based on that alone, I was really intrigued by this book. I couldn't wait to read it, and I couldn't wait to read it with my book club. And I think pretty much all of us had the same thought, that it was it really missed the mark. And I think, you know, this was one of her earlier books, so you could see hints of her writing there, but it just wasn't fully developed at all. So this one was a little bit of a miss for me, which was unfortunate, especially because it did have the Edgar Allan Poe theme kind of wound in there, and it just sort of missed the mark. And then on the second Hester Fox book that I read, The Orphan of Cemetery Hill, I liked this one much better. It's kind of unfortunate that I picked the other one for the book club and not this one. So this was very much more reminiscent of her writing. So this is about a young girl who is an orphan. Obviously, her and her sister were treated really, really badly by their aunt, who used to exploit her abilities to be able to talk to the dead. So she got her into spiritualism, which of course was really, really big during the time that this book took place. And her sister managed to get away from her aunt, and she went to live basically with a groundskeeper in a cemetery, and she could still talk to the dead. So she befriends this gentleman, and there's a murder that happens, and she can speak to the woman who was murdered. And it's a fantastic story. I thought it was really, really good. I really like this one so much better than the other one. It was very much more reminiscent of Hester Fox's writing. And I would definitely, out of these two, I would definitely recommend The Orphan of Cemetery Hill. I would never not recommend a book. So, you know, if you wanted to still pick up The Widow of Pale Harbor, go ahead, but it's definitely not reminiscent of her writing. And then I also read the first 2 books in the Hex Hall series by Rachel Hawkins. So Hex Hall 1 and then Hex Hall 2, which is called Demon Glass. I believe there's 4 books in this series. And it's based on this school where Praegidium, or like witches and demons and fairies and werewolves and vampires, all of those types of characters go when basically they've done something wrong. So it's a rehabilitation sort of school. And the main character, who's a witch, of course, has a magical father and a normal mother, and she was brought up kind of in regular society, but she performs a spell that goes awry in her normal human school, so she gets sent to this special school, Hex Hall, or it's called in the book, it's called Hex Hall, and that really annoys me because that's not how that's pronounced. But anyway, it's Hex Hall, but they all call it Hex Hall. And so it has all of the wonderful boarding school, dark academia, Harry Potter sort of vibes. And of course we have tons of adventure, and there's friend groups and enemies and frenemies and all of that, plus all of the magical elements wound in. And kind of the underlying story is really, really interesting. So it's so funny because before, kind of, when did I start these? January, I believe, or December. When I started these, I had never heard of them before. I can't even remember how I heard of this one before. I think it came up in like a suggested reading or something. And this is a fairly old series. I mean, it came out, I believe, in like 2011, 2012 kind of thing. And I really enjoyed these. I gave them both a solid 4-star rating. I thought they were super entertaining. I was really taken into the story. It's great world building. So if you enjoy kind of that dark academia, fantasy boarding school sort of vibes, I would definitely highly recommend these if you haven't read them yet, which I'm sure a lot of people have because, like I said, they're fairly old and I just never knew about them. So definitely going to be continuing with this series. I can't wait to start book 3. I kind of put these aside for a little while because I'm concentrating on the Gothic Hearts reading challenge, but in March I'm probably going to pick up book 3. And I'm really hoping that the story doesn't fall off at all and it continues to be just as amazing as the first 2. And then the last book that I wanted to talk about was The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux, and I read this as the January pick of my Haunted Victorian Book Club. And we just yesterday, which was Saturday the 17th of February, we had our live discussion. So I'm a huge lover of Phantom. This is the first time I read the book, the original book. I'm a huge lover of the musical, the adaptations, the Broadway score. I saw it on stage, and so I couldn't wait to pick this one up because it's one of those ones that's kind of eluded me over the years, and I was really happy to pick this up and discuss it with the book club. Unfortunately, this one kind of fell flat for me. I'd say I'd rate this one about a 2.5 stars. It was a long slog to try to get into this book. The beginning of the book was, there wasn't a whole lot of character development. The story wasn't really going anywhere for kind of long durations. And then the character of Christine I found to be super annoying. So I think it really is a reflection of its time and the way women were written at that time. But it's also a translated work, so I think maybe some of the atmosphere and stuff kind of got lost within the pages, basically. But the character of the Phantom is definitely more sinister than any of the stage plays or the adaptations that came out. You know, he's more of a skeletal figure with these fiery eyes and stuff like that, and very much disfigured. And I found was super interesting. So towards the end of the book, when we really start to get into the story and stuff like that, it definitely did pick up for me, and I'm glad it did because I was really, really struggling with this one. But still, all in all, like I said, it was a 2.5 star read. There wasn't a whole lot of character development, and even I was talking to my friends for the Haunted Victorian Book Club yesterday, and it was almost like pulling teeth to try to get through an hour long session of a book discussion, which usually when we're talking about books, like, we end up extending the live show because we have so much to say. But there wasn't a whole lot of this for this one outside of the character of Phantom and you know, kind of like a spooky theater with all of its passageways and stuff like that. So I would definitely still recommend picking this one up, especially if you are a lover of the Broadway show and the score and the adaptations and stuff like that. It is still a, you know, a Gothic horror classic, so I'm always going to recommend picking those up because they paved the way for the whole genre of Gothic literature. But I found that without the music, without the dancing, without all of that kind of stuff that accompanied it, it kind of fell a little bit flat for me. So there you guys go. You know, this was a very real video because as booktubers, you put a lot of pressure on yourself to read a lot, so you have content to make, you have things to discuss, and you're always supposed to be, you know, the influencer who's trying to get people to pick up more books. I'm never going to be an influencer who says I've read 27 or 30 books in a month, but I'm also someone who reads quite voraciously and, you know, frequently, and it is part of kind of my daily habit. And this really fell off in the past couple of months, but at the same time, this is just going to show that we're all human, right? And, you know, I only read a few books over the past few months between November, December, January, and that's okay. I'm trying not to put too much pressure on myself, and it's supposed to be a hobby, right? So we all have to support each other when we're kind of feeling a little bit slumpy. And of course, I've still been out and adding to my vintage collection and all of that kind of stuff, and I'm trying not to get up in my head too much about what I've read and what I haven't read. So things are starting to pick up again, and I'm starting to feel like I'm in a little bit of a better headspace. So I'm excited to talk to you guys about my Gothic Hearts Reading Challenge month. We're picking up some great books, and the book club is doing really, really well too. So if you have any interest in either the book club, joining my Patreon, or anything else, all of the information will be left down below. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, give me a thumbs up, leave me a question down below because you know I love chatting with you guys. But until next time, stay spooky, everybody. Bye.